Agenda here. We only have a short 1 hour today, so I'm going to move pretty quickly so that we can quickly hear from Willie. Next slide. Great. So real quickly, in terms of the agenda, we'll be talking a little bit about MASP, giving you some background and getting into details regarding the latest state funding that's available for out-of-school time programs. And then there'll be some options to have some Q&A. We're going to go ahead before we get started and do a quick poll here. If Sonia Hall, another wonderful team member from MASP, will go ahead and launch that for us. Alrighty, we just want to get a sense of who's here. So if you could answer this question, what type of out-of-school time program or partner are you? School, intermediary school district, 501c3 nonprofit, local municipality, Parks and Rec would fall in there too, institution of higher education, community education, and I think if you keep scrolling down, library is there or other. I'll give you just a second. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and perfect. Share. Can we share the results, Sonia? Perfect. So it looks like the bulk of folks are with a 501c3 nonprofit. And then we also have a good mixture of other folks with us too. The reason we do this is we're going to get into in a little bit with Willie groups that are eligible for this funding. So it's helpful for you to have in mind the type of out-of-school time program that you are. Alrighty, next, Trevor. A little bit about MASP. If this is your first time with us, welcome. If you've been at a session before with MASP or part of our convenings, thank you so much for coming back. MASP is, as we describe it, a coalition or a movement, and we are all a part of that coalition and movement. And we're really working to ensure that someday soon there is a day where all youth have equal access to quality out-of-school time programs, and that means before school, after school, and summer learning programs. We want to make sure that not only youth from K to 12th grade have a safe place to be, but also a supportive and enriching environment as well. A little bit about our work. You can see these are our core competencies, but we focus a lot, again, on working towards our mission. And to work towards our mission, we advocate on behalf of out-of-school time programs, on behalf of youth, to make sure that they have access to these critical programs. We also work to remove barriers that are causing issues for out-of-school time programs. We offer a slew of trainings and professional development, which we'll talk about in a second, as well as we put out a lot of research about out-of-school time, the field, and frankly, the demand for out-of-school time in the state. We have a few items coming up, or a few events coming up, that we hope that you will join us for. One is our Michigan Afterschool Collaborative Leadership Summit. That is an event that we co-host with the Michigan Department of Education. That's on October 13th in Lansing. You can go to our website that's listed below to go ahead and register for that. We've got a great lineup with Dr. Bernice Patterson as a keynote speaker, and a whole slew of amazing opportunities for you to even earn credit with some workshops. Then in February, we'll have our annual conference coming up, and we hope you're able to join us for that. And then another few items, we have several communities of practice that are out there. So these are communities of practice or peer learning groups around STEM, around mental health. Another one that we're doing with Youth Voice around Neutral Zone. Most of those will be virtual with some in-person options. And we really hope you'll consider doing that, as well as checking out our youth development credential, which, as well as certificate, which is a great opportunity to help to really have a commitment to your professionalism as a field. Another item is for you to take a quick click of this with your camera and sign up for our website. You can also sign up on, sign up here on the QR code, or you can sign up on our website. Next up. And then we've always got our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter going, I guess, which is X now. We need to change that logo. But those are all opportunities for you to hear about MASP, learn about MASP, hopefully share some of our resources, again, as we're all working for this collective goal to make sure youth are having access to your wonderful programs. So before I hand it over to my good friend Willie at Michigan Department of Education, just wanted to provide a little bit of background on this funding. You may hear it called 32N, which is actually the line item in the state budget, but it's 32N out of school time grants. And we've been fortunate. This is now our third round of funding. In the last 2 years, we've gone from zero funding for out of school time state dollars to now 50 million, which is fantastic and really is a testament to all of your help in terms of advocating. You're going to hear more about this particular grant opportunity in a minute and how you can apply for it. But I'm also hoping that you will help us to keep in mind that this is something that we have to continue to advocate for, so that we are back again next year with another grant opportunity. And some important things for us to do with that is just continuing to be in front of the legislature. And if you need talking points, if you need guidance on where to find your legislator, whether it's the House or the Senate, please feel free to look at our website or contact one of our staff. But we always encourage you to have legislators out to your program, to be communicating with them frequently about the great work, and as much as you can show really the benefits on the youth, that will help us not just in terms of being able to continue this line of funding, right? We hope that at least there will be 50 million, but we would love for there to be more funding so that more youth have access to these amazing programs. So with that, before I turn it over to Willie, could we do a poll real quick, Sonia? And we'd love to get a sense of whether those of you on the phone are going to be applying for this funding. So you can simply tell us yes, no, or if you're undecided. No pressure. And we're going to ask it to you at the end as well, just out of curiosity to see if this session has shifted that at all. Great. We'll go ahead and end the poll. It looks like we have a good number that have already decided to apply. Yay, we're really glad to hear that. And but also some of you that are undecided. So hopefully this call will help to clarify this. You'll also note that we'll put some contact information in the chat box, so that if you want to reach out directly to Willie or Deandra Ramsey, who's the out of school time manager, or Juan Ruiz, who's the out of school time education consultant at MDE, you can do so to ask any additional questions. So with that, let me hand it over to Willie. Willie Buford is the wonderful grants technician at the Michigan Department of Education. And Willie also has a long background with out of school time programs. So we're really excited to have him with us today. Willie, over to you.
All right, good morning, and thank you, Aaron, for that introduction. I just want to, before we get started, thank all of you for not only the work that you're doing, but like Aaron alluded to earlier, for the advocating for funding in this space, which is really necessary. So thank you, and let's get started. Let me share some information with you guys today about the 32N MDE OST grant. So today we're going to look at the application. I'm going to show you what that looks like and how to walk through it, and then we'll open it up in the end for some questions and answers. All right, so once again, we're going to get started with some of the purposes, desires, and I'm going to get into some basic information. So the purpose of the out of school time grant is, or the desire is to provide educational programming in core subject areas such as mathematics, reading, and science. Also to increase access to quality programming for children and youth around Michigan, before school, after school, before and after school programming, and summer learning programs to accelerate and support learning recovery and to help reduce costs to our families for participation. All right, it's also to serve These funds are for grants that will provide before school, after school, and/or summer learning, in-person programming, and serve children in kindergarten through 12th grade. The grant opportunity will be awarded through a competitive application process from the state school aid funds allocated under the Michigan Public Act 103 of 2023, Section 32N. This grant supports the strategic goals of Michigan's top 10 strategic education plan, specifically goals 2, 3, and 5, which are to improve early literacy achievement, improve the health, safety, and wellness of all learners, and increase the percentage of all students who graduates from high school. More information on this can be found at our website, www.michigan.gov/MDE. So the department shall distribute the full $49 million of funding to eligible entities. This is a competitive grant process. The academic year programs must start no later than January 2nd, 2024. Summer-only programs must begin after the 23-24 academic year has ended, and all funds must be obligated by September 30th, 2024. Next slide. So who are the eligible applicants for this grant? Community-based organizations, or CBOs, that are exempt from federal income tax under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code, 26 U.S.C. 501. An institute of higher education is also eligible, usually a college or university. In addition to that, a community or adult education program is eligible to apply for this grant, usually connected to a public school, but not eligible for school aid funds. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in this presentation. Public libraries are eligible. Local governments, usually parks and recreation or city township sponsored out of school time programs. And intermediate school districts are also eligible to apply for this grant. Next slide, please. So when it comes to local education agencies, or LEAs, MDE encourages the collaboration of LEAs where school district or public school academy partners with an eligible entity as the fiscal agent. LEAs may not serve as a fiscal agent unless it is applying on behalf of an existing community or education adult program that is not funded by school aid funds. So once again, LEAs are not eligible as a direct entity. So what are the have to do? What must happen in order for you to receive this grant? So programs must provide at a minimum all of the following. First, before and after school or summer learning program to children in any or all grades, kindergarten through 12th grade. Programming to children in a manner in which the children are in person at a building designated by the eligible entity. So it has to be in-person learning. Support expanded learning opportunities such as mentoring, leadership, community engagement, agriculture, art, music, literacy, science, technology, engineering, math, health, and recreational programming. Educational programming core subject areas, once again, including but not limited to math, reading, and science. And in addition to that, social emotional learning may be offered as well. All right, so now let's go into the funding tables. These tables that we are going to take a look at are also available on our website as well. So funding applicants may receive. Applicants may apply for either school year programming only, summer programming only, or both school year and summer programming. This table shows the range for school year programming. School year only programming is eligible for between $10,800 up to $84,000 per site. Programs must begin January 2nd of 2024 and must run a minimum of 60 days with a minimum of 1.5 hours each day. Next slide, please. So this table here shows the ranges for summer programming. Applicants may apply for summer programming only. For school year programming only, summer programming only, or both school year and summer programming. Summer programming is eligible for between $11,520 and $150,000 at a minimum of 24 days for at least 4 hours per day. Summer-only programs must be held after the 2023-24 academic year has ended through the first day of the 2024-25 academic school year. Remember that these sites, this funding is per site. So if you have more than one site, then this funding, of course, multiplies with the sites that you have. Now here's some examples of what that could look like. An applicant site proposing to serve 15 students for 2.5 hours per day after school from January the 2nd through June 7th for at least 80 days, this is during the school year only, could receive $24,000. An applicant site proposing to serve 35 students per day, 1.5 hours per school for at least 80 days during the school year and 50 summer days could receive $96,000. Some more examples. Next slide. An applicant site proposing to serve 25 students from in between 2 to 2.5 hours per day after school for at least 60 days during the school year and 75 students in the summer for 24 days could receive $84,600. And to max out with the funding per site, an applicant site will have to propose to serve 35 students at 3.5 hours per day before and after school for at least 60 days during the school year and 120 students in the summer for 50 days. Then you could receive the max of $234,000. Next slide. All right, so the application process. This application went live on September 5th, so it's already live now. If you have not completed an intent to apply, what you need to do then is email us at mde-ost@michigan.gov. When you send this email, what you want to say in this email is that, hey, we missed the window for the intent to apply, but we are still interested. From there, we'll send you information that needs to be filled out. Once you fill that information out and email it back to us, we will then submit you into the intent to apply window and you'll receive an email. Keep in mind that it could take 24 to 48 hours after we receive that information from you before you receive that link to go in and apply. The application must be completed and submitted by October 5th of 2023 by noon. Next slide. Okay, so the total score for each application is the sum of an average of reviewer scores and the applicant's priority points. Allocations are made based on the rank, order, and approved requested amount. Submitted applications will be reviewed and scored as follows. Excuse me. The applicant narratives are reviewed and scored by a team of trained expert peer reviewers. 3 to 4 peer reviewers are assigned to each application. The scores are submitted to the MDE OST team, and then from there, each application receives an average score. The total score for each application is the sum of the average of reviewer scores and the applicant's priority points. Total application scores are sorted from the highest score to the lowest score. The allocation fund is then dispersed based on the requested approved amount and score rank until the allocation of the funds are fully expanded. MDE must assure that 60% of these funds will be awarded to community-based organizations per our legislative requirements. If needed, priority points will be used as the tiebreaker. All right, we can go on to the next slide. All right, so this is what the intent to apply window looks like. If you have already submitted your intent to apply, then you've seen this. For those who I alluded to earlier, if you have not submitted your intent to apply, then the email that we send you will just be getting this information from you and then putting that in for you on our end so that you won't have to worry about this as this window has closed. And then from there, we'll send it directly in to get you that link. Once again, that can take 24 to 48 hours after we have received your information. Next slide. To apply, individuals who have completed that intent to apply, you will receive an email or have received the email with the application link to the GEM system. You want to log into GEM using your MASP credentials, and then you will see pending tasks. Once you see that, you want to select on the 2023-24 OST grant application. It is very, very important to read through the application forms and instructions thoroughly. Next slide. All right, so once you're in, this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have these 11 links here. The task link will open up a page that looks like this. Open up each blue link that appears under the document name. Be sure to save each page as you complete it. And I'll repeat that. Be sure to save each page as you complete it. Pages may be edited after saving until the application is submitted. You do not want to click submit until all the pages are complete. So once again, as you're going through this, save every page and because you can always come back and do some editing with it. But you do not want to click submit until all pages are complete. Once you click submit, that's your application going in. So what's ever missing out of that application will, of course, affect your points. So make sure you save, and then in the end, when you're finished, click submit. Depending on the number of sites per your organization, you're going to see, oh, I lost myself here. Depending on the number of sites in the application, what you are going to get is a drop-down menu where you can put in from 1 to 5 sites. Anything over 6 sites, you'll have to click and fill out a spreadsheet. So if you are serving 1 site, you'll click that link that says site for 1 site. Proposed for 2 sites, you'll see that link, you'll click that for your 2nd site. For 6 or more sites, you will be then directed to a spreadsheet where you just fill in that site information from there. Next slide, thank you. The request for proposal. So this link, this first link gives you the information about the proposal. You want to read through this entire document as this outlines what is needed in the grant. Refer to it as needed while working on the application. Remember, priority point scores are detailed in this RFP document. And we will use this, the MBE team will use this data from the site for the grants selection sections to calculate our priority points.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Willie. We really appreciate it. And I know that Richard Lauer, who's the director of preschool and out of school time, has also joined us. So Richard, if you want to share your camera, that would be, oh, and I see you right there. Perfect. Hello, Richard. Richard, if folks don't know, is a really good friend to all of us in the out of school time field. So we really appreciate all of his support and help with this work, but also for his help with being on this call. So we have several different questions that are in the Q&A. I'll just go ahead and start reading through them if that's okay. And Richard, maybe you can help to reply to them. And folks, if you have questions, please feel free to put it into the Q&A box. We'd be happy to answer them. So first up, Richard, which we've actually heard this question, I think at every conversation we've had, is there a daily attendance mandate or just proposed number of students to be served?
So does my voice work on this?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Willie, if just to confirm, because I've not been at the other two, you will propose, as you saw on the grid that Willie showed for the program year, school year, as well as the summer, you are proposing a certain number of children to be served. And the number of hours, either before, after, or combined, as well as for summer. That is your target goal for recruitment and enrollment in your program. I just responded to Marianne Dickinson in the Q&A about what if you fall short of that during the year. Now, it is an expectation that you obviously are in this for the children and youth, and you are going to do all you can to outreach in your community to serve children and families and to work with the local sites around the community that are frequented by your target population. So you have a feeling and you know your community best. So you write your grant based on your number of proposed students that you can serve, and you work to enroll those students in your program. If you are struggling to enroll and need support, that is where the MD out of school time team, where Aaron indicated the manager, Deandra, or Juan, the consultant, and even Willie can assist you in coming up with strategies, etc. Or connect you to a peer who may be able to help you as well with strategies. But we deal with struggles with enrollment on a case-by-case basis and determining next steps. Our first line of response is not punitive, is not taking away money related to attendance. So you do not need to worry about that. We are here to serve children and youth. If you are serving children and youth, you are succeeding in this grant. So please understand that. We are here to help you succeed in that effort. So I hope that is the best I can answer on that. But please do not overestimate your capacity, because by overestimating your capacity, you are then potentially taking away an opportunity of another entity, another organization in your community or another community who may be seeking a grant and may not get it because you've overestimated your capacity, and they are able to serve 15 kids. So please be aware of that.
Great. Thanks so much.
Willie, anything else that you would add?
No, Richard, I think you got it right on the nose. Yeah, you said it right. Remote proposed amount of students. And then if you are having problems with that, you can definitely reach out to the team and we're there to support.
Perfect. So the next question is the funded applicant chart says number of proposed students obviously equals amount of funding. If funding is allocated, will there be an ADA expectation that could impact funding after it was awarded?
I don't see that. I need you to.
Oh, sure. Let me put it in the chat for you. And this might be one of those questions that, yep, 88 average daily attendance.
Okay, see, I was going in a different direction. So no, again, this is not, you propose to serve children based on your enrollment, but it goes back to my default answer that I just gave you. So there's not a requirement for average daily attendance that we will be tracking.
Right, which I think answers that question. There is not a monitoring of the attendance, correct? There's another question.
I mean, you will be reporting numbers of children served as part of the evaluation efforts, but we will not be tracking and monitoring average daily attendance. No.
Folks get like we're 21st century, right? Confused with what, what this is here.
Yeah, this grant is not 21st century.
So speaking of that, there was a question about folks who get 21st century. They're questioning if they can apply for this funding.
Willie, have you answered that at another session?
So yeah, I've seen the answer for this at another section. And I presented this in the slides too. So what happens is that if you are funded by 21st Century, or if you are a LEA, then what happens is that you aren't able to apply unless you're a partnership. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. 21st century, right, Richard, can apply. They just can't supplant funding.
Right. So there's two things there, Willie. 21st century, yes, you are allowed to apply, but you need to demonstrate how you are expanding programs and services. What Willie was getting into is 21st century has a broader eligibility than this grant of applicants, which includes LEAs, local districts, and public school academies. And that's where Willie was going with his answer. And that LEAs are not direct applicants for this grant, unlike 21st century. However, you can be a partner to a community-based organization. And that's where he was going.
Definitely.
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that they knew they could apply.
No, yes, you can apply.
So there's a question about the priority points outlined in the RFP. Is there a rubric available?
Yes, and it should be a link on the our website.
Great. And then can you apply if you're a non-exempt child care provider? Which I'm assuming is a nonprofit, non-exempt.
So
yes.
Non-exempt,
I believe that means non-licensed in childcare. And this grant, you can apply as a non-licensed entity. So if that answers your question, thumbs up. I am not completely proficient in childcare language as a preschool person. So clarify if that did not answer your question.
Perfect. Feel free to put it in the chat box or whatever you like. Can the funding be used for transportation?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes, it can.
All right, we already talked about daily attendance question. Is there a penalty if an organization falls short of proposed number of students?
Once again, no, we're not doing any kind of attendance tracking. But if you are having problems, like we said, you can always reach out to the MBE OST team, and we'll do what we can to help support you in getting more students.
Can a for-profit childcare be a location or host a nonprofit for before and after school care and summer?
And I believe, and Richard, you can help me with this, I believe that as long as the fiscal, the person who's holding the funds is a nonprofit, then they can work in a for-profit building.
Great.
That is correct, as a partner.
Perfect. And we've seen,
Can I want
Yeah.
to pause
Yeah.
because I just looked through, I realized back to the original question of priority points. We have the application priority based on the law and outlining the 4 areas, but we actually do not have the priority rubric posted on our website. So that is within the application. And so that is something that we can remedy and post to our website, just that page of the rubric. That gives the, because that aligns with the application priority that is on page 4 of the grant application information.
Great. And then it looks like there was a question about let's see, if we're looking at my login, I think that's happened. I've heard this question a few times as well. So they completed the intent to apply without a my login account established. What happens?
So from what I understand, that we need that my login account, but we can help you to get that my login. So if you don't have a my login account, once again, you can email us at the at MDE-OST, and then what we can do is send out instructions to you to help you get that my login.
Perfect. I think that we answered all of the questions. Did we miss anything, Sonia or Trevor?
I do not believe so.
Great. So if you do have any follow-up questions or you do need any help with GEMS, questions about my login, etc., Trevor did put the email address on there for Willie and Deandra and Juan, which is the out of school time grants team at MDE, and I'm sure they'd be happy to help you. Alrighty, we're going to transition over to Trevor now to talk a little bit about some lessons learned in terms of things that MASP has found to be helpful when you're thinking about putting together government grants. So go ahead, over to you, Trevor.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good morning, all. So you may have seen like the State Farm commercials, right? We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. Our team over at the Michigan Afterschool Partnership, we have engaged in grant writing and grant reading for these and similar projects and funds. And we have discovered some themes along the way and thought they'd just be helpful to share them with you. These are not necessarily specific to this particular application or grant funding. They can be applied to anything, whether it's you know, a 21st century application or the 32N funds or community center grant or any local funding or proposal to your, you know, your local education association, whatever it may be. There are just some general kind of tips and tricks that we've learned through the years that we wanted to share in an informal way. And so I just also want to echo that we have a wonderful partnership with Michigan Department of Education. MASP does not, cannot, and will not speak on behalf of MDE. So the things that I'm going to share are based on, you know, our experiences, not on formal guidance or recommendations from the Department of Education. This is purely from our own experience, and just want to be clear on that. Hopefully the things that we do share are supportive of your application and may lead to being able to compete and earn a score that is one that you're going for. That's the idea, right? That these are helpful tips and tricks. But again, they are not the guidance or recommendations of the Department of Education. So just kind of keep that in mind. So a handful of things here in the next 15 minutes or so that I'm just going to touch on are around the idea of preparing to write and review your grant and then submit them, be able to continue planning for implementation, and then, thinking back, this whole idea of reflection and plan, do, review. So when we're talking about this point in the process, we know that this is a tight turnaround for this particular application, but that's not unique to this application. Lots of different opportunities for funding end up being a really condensed period of time or timeline. And so when you're thinking about planning for how you're going to submit an application, it's important to start with a kind of a submission date and plan backwards from there, and being able to invite the partners to the table that are going to be engaged in delivering these programs. You want to make sure that they're at the table and they have a voice too. And that can certainly be helpful. And the other piece of any kind of application is things come up, right? We know this thing's going to be due October 5th as an example. There are going to be signatures required. There are going to be meetings that you're going to have and times to review and update this thing. And so giving yourself a little bit of extra time. Plan to submit any application, but this one before October 5. Don't wait till the very last second, because things are going to happen. Things come up. And as you're working through and inviting partners to be a part of this process, having them engaged in the conversation and grant development or grant proposal writing is going to help you ensure alignment, that help you put you in a position where your partner organizations, the folks that you're collaborating with, are in alignment with the things that you're doing. There are fewer things that are more frustrating as an organization when you either A, invite someone else to be a part of the work you're doing, or B, you get invited to be a part of an application. And then you discover later that there is an alignment, or the vision or the mission or the purpose for this organization doesn't line up with this, or you have big, cultural differences in how you're approaching your work or whatever it may be. So invite those people to be a part of the process from the very beginning, because this whole idea of writing a proposal, it's program planning. Grant writing is program planning. And so getting back to some of the questions that were asked about, proposed number of students served and average daily attendance, and are there consequences or monitoring considerations when you're writing this application. One thing that I would encourage you to do is write it like you're going to get it, right? That whatever you put into your proposal, you're going to be held accountable to deliver on. And so that can be anything from the number of students that you choose to write into or to apply for. It could be the number of days that you're planning to operate. It could be the number of sites that you're hoping to operate. And so when you think about all of those different considerations, it's really important to think through, like, okay, what are the rules? What are the expectations? What is reasonable for us to apply for and then be held accountable to? And I'm not suggesting that you don't dream big, right? Dream on. That's great. It's wonderful to think about what could be, but also wanting to encourage you to consider, okay, if we're applying for this amount of money, and we say we're going to serve this number of students, where are they coming from? Are there other programs? Richard had mentioned, like the whole idea of competing, if there are multiple programs in a community, or if there are multiple applications, of thinking about what can you really truly deliver on, and how are you best meeting the needs of your local community. So again, not to discourage you from thinking big and dreaming about all of the wonderful impact you can have and the number of families you can serve, but also thinking about, okay, if we're held accountable to these things, what are we able to provide for? What is our capacity? Think about staffing and facility space, obviously the budget, all of those things come into play. So just a word of affirmation to really seek out the needs of the community that you're serving right there, and thinking about the capacity you have as an organization to be able to follow through on whatever you promise that you're going to do. So then that gets us into this next phase of like writing the thing, right? And so one thing that I would really encourage you to do, Willie had mentioned, like, make sure you save as you go kind of thing. I would go one step further and say, make sure that you have access to whatever system that you need to submit, but to choose some kind of local software that's going to allow you to collaborate and to have more control over the writing process. Being able to submit your application is one thing, and be able to put that information in there. But I would encourage you to use like Microsoft Word or Google Docs or any other word processor that is going to allow you to save locally, and encourage you to collaborate and save and share that with others and update it as you go, because the system is designed to submit. It's not designed to draft and for editing. It has limited features or when it comes to reviewing spelling and grammar and word counts and that kind of thing. So think about doing that stuff, locally. And then when it's time to submit, you can just, drag and drop or copy paste right into whatever online system that you're using. And I think that's going to be a safer, reliable way to be able to walk through the process of writing, especially when you're considering multiple drafts. Some other little tips on there are to avoid assumptions in including relevant data. And what I mean by those two things is that this competitive award, right, this competitive grant process, there's a rubric there. And it is okay to write to the rubric. It is encouraged to write to the rubric. This is very different than relationship-based funding that you may be seeking in your local community or through a foundation, for example, where there's a lot of storytelling and there are values-based things that you're trying to communicate within that space. This is truly, you have the answer key to the test. It is the rubric. And so when you're looking at the best way to increase your score, it's going to be to include relevant data, not irrelevant data, and to really focus on writing specifically to the application and the rubric and the language that's used there. And so avoiding any assumptions about, avoiding assumptions about what people know about out of school time or about your community, about your program. And so you're going to want to write as clearly and concisely and simply as you can that answers directly the questions and the elements that are listed in the rubric. As somebody who has been a grant reader for lots of different spaces, the easier you can make it on me as a grant reader, the better, right? If I have to comb through an application to try to figure out how you're answering the question in there, that is less likely that you're going to get the score that you're going for, right? Answer that thing right in there, use their language. Super helpful when you think about it from that way, and the idea of stating and restating something. So I've used the example in the past of like a spelling bee. And if you are trying to be simple, clear, and concise, the idea of state and restating something. So in a spelling bee, if somebody says spell state, what do? They say state, S-T-A-T-E, state. Same thing with an application like this where you're trying to communicate clearly. If it's asking you something, say, this is how we're going to do that. That's how we're going to do it. It's right there. It's clear. It's simple. It's straightforward. Take as much of the interpretive piece out of it for a grant reader. And that's where that storytelling piece can sometimes actually cloud your answer. And so, think of this as how can you communicate your answer to the rubric as clearly, as simply, and as concisely as possible. That doesn't mean don't tell your story, but just be really intentional about the data that you're including, This isn't a creative writing project, right, where it needs to be a big flowery narrative. You're writing to communicate information. Is just a tip that I would share with you. Once you've gotten to the point where you've got your draft, you've met with your community partners, you've gone through and you've written this thing, obviously go back and proofread it. You're not going to get marked down necessarily in an application for grammar or spelling or something like that. However, if it impacts the ability of the reader to understand what you're saying, that's where it can get difficult, right? Because again, we want to make this as easy for the grant readers to be able to read through, understand what you submitted, and be able to score it. And so proofread that thing, confirm the dates that you have, and then reconfirm them and check your math. So if you said you're going to apply for to serve this many young people for this many days in the school year in the summer program, make sure you go back and you review and you cross-reference with your calendar and say, oh yeah, we said we were going to run 50 days in the summer. We actually have 50 days of summer that we can run programming, or the facility that we have available is going to allow us to be in that space for that many days. And then to be able to go back and check that math. One other piece related to this is, to ensure that you are, that things match up. So if you're looking at your budget and it says, that you've got 3 staff members, and you've built out that time in your budget, that when you look at the staffing plan, it should list those 3 staff members, who they are, what they're going to do, how many hours they're working. Because I have seen where you end up with applications where the staffing plan includes 3, 4, 5 different staff, and in the budget they're not listed anywhere. Or the opposite is sometimes true, where you have 3, 4, 5 positions that you're paying for out of a grant or an application or proposal like this, and then there's no staffing listed anywhere in the application. And so just a friendly reminder to ensure that you are referencing things consistently throughout your application. And I think that can certainly help with communicating what you're trying to do, and then ensuring, convincing the reader that you have thought through these things, that all the boxes are checked, that things are applicable and appropriate. And then to score your application and have someone else score it too. Read through that thing. When you submit your proposal, you should probably have a good idea of what your score is going to be. The rubric is, we're still humans, right? There's still, things that we are not all the same. We don't all see the same things, understand things the same way. So there's always going to be variance. However, the rubric is there. And if you write to the rubric, it should be pretty clear about what your score would be in that space. And so as you review that thing, you'll then have an opportunity to upgrade your application, right? That you can review this thing and you can say, interesting. I thought we would have scored this, but we scored lower. And then you can make the decision at that point, like, well, in order to get the extra point in this space, this is how you'd have to rewrite your application. And then you'll be able to decide, on your own, is that something that is worthwhile us pursuing? So for example, if you're looking at the budgeting piece, if it's a big jump for you to go from serving 20 students to serving 30 students, and you're not sure you can do it, like that's the conversation you can have in that space and be like, if we want that much money and we're applying for it, can we do that? Is that reasonable? Or does it make more sense for us to say, you know what, let's let that go and let's apply for this amount? Or number of days that you're planning to serve, or whatever other items there may be in the rubric. Just a reminder that it's an opportunity to go back, review it, find opportunities if you want to score higher. That is something that is within your control to choose where you would want to strengthen your application. Then we get to this idea of submitting and celebrating. The application is due on October 5. And then you have an opportunity to really celebrate this thing. So let's say you spend the next 4 weeks putting together this big, beautiful proposal and you submit it. Celebrate. That's great. Regardless of whether you receive funding in this space with this particular application or not, it's a great start. You've created a budget, a staffing plan, a program plan, a calendar, materials requests. Like you created all of these things even if you don't get the funding, you've got a great start on the next application or a program proposal to be able to take and bring that to another funder. And so celebrate with your partners. If you've written them into your community partners, if you've written them into the grant, to be able to share that application with them so they know right there with their own eyes what they've committed to, so that you can continue to plan for implementation. So I mentioned at the beginning, writing this thing as if you're going to get it. Once you submitted, similarly, it's not over. Assume you're going to get it. Now, I don't mean go off and hire people and start spending money kind of thing. But what I do mean is proceed as if you're going to get the grant, or any funding stream, right? That you can take on tasks and be working toward implementation without knowing if you've received the funding or not. So if you've submitted this and you know that you've got new positions that you're creating, now would be a good time to create those job descriptions. Now would be a good time to write that job posting, figuring out where you're going to post it. You can talk to your human resource department to find out about interview questions, or you can work with your finance office to find out, okay, if we were to get this, how is this going to work? How are we going to do purchasing? You can start reserving facility space if you're in a facility so that you have that space available. The idea is that we want to get you to a point, or you want to get to a point where once you find out if you've received this funding, you can hit play and off you go. If you wait to find out if you've received the funding to start planning for implementation, you're going to be behind, right? And that's going to be really difficult to do. If this particular funding becomes available, November into December, and the expectation is starting right away, like in January, that's a short turnaround, especially with a holiday in there. And so thinking about what are the things that you can put in place now so that when and if you do receive, funding, you're able to jump right in and go. And then lastly, reflect, thinking about what would you do differently next year, right? What did you learn from this experience? What information did you not get to share that you wish you would have? Who did you want at the table, but you didn't have an opportunity to invite them? What do you want MDE to know about your experience? They will send out a survey at the completion of the application window to collect some information back while it's still fresh. This is relatively new funding, as Aaron mentioned. $50 million this year that has grown recently from some of the relief funds that were available. Now this is part of the school aid fund. Our dream and our hope and our intent and our expectation is that this is going to be something that we have access to, and these resources are supporting communities across the state moving forward, not a one-time thing. And so we want to continue to refine the process, to build it better, to be able to pull forward what you've learned from each year. And so be thinking about what it's going to look like next time, because that's the plan, is that there is going to be a next time. So that said, that was a whole bunch of information. We've got a couple minutes left here. I think, Aaron, is there anything in the chat box that we wanted to answer that came up in the last couple minutes?
I did not see anything that came up in the Q&A, and I think we are almost out of time. So close us out.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a QR code here. So just a couple things for next steps. Just remember that deadline for submission is October 5th by 12 o'clock. Got to be in there. That one's an immovable object, right? So plan backwards. Try to get that thing in earlier if you can. If you have questions, you can reach out directly to the Department of Education. They're the ones that can answer specific questions about the application and the rubric. Always welcome to reach out to us or visit Michigan Afterschool Partnership's website at myafterschool.org. And we'd be happy to get answers to you or directed to the people who do have answers. And then there's an evaluation for today's session, an opportunity to provide any feedback to us. And so you can use your phone, smart device, use that QR code. It'll take you directly there. Sonia, I see there is another question. Can you point me to which question you're referring to?
Yes, it's from Marianne Dickinson. Is there any plan or push to move the funding cycle to mirror the school year?
We would love to figure out a way to change the cycle of funding and also to make it multi-year. But right now we are stuck with the constraints of when the state budget itself works, right? And so when this budget passed in July, and then MDE, our friends there, have been working diligently to get this out quickly, so that we can have it available for folks in January. But that is definitely something that we would love to see perhaps in the future, as hopefully this becomes something that is recurrent versus one-off.
Great, thanks, Erin. Seeing that it is 11:30, we're going to go ahead and we'll officially end today's session. Thank you so much for joining us. We are really excited about the opportunity to grow the out-of-school time sector in the state, and happy to be a partner, a really close partner, support, and friend with Michigan Department of Education to continue getting access to programs like the ones that you have in your communities. So thanks for being here. Again, reach out if you have questions. With that, we will have the recording available. I believe, Sonia, will we be posting this to our website? Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Wonderful, thank you. And so enjoy the rest of your day, y'all. Hope you have a wonderful week. Good luck with your applications if you choose to apply. And as you are on your way out, I'm just going to open up that poll one last time. If you are planning to apply, go ahead and you can answer it there on your way out the door. Have a wonderful day, y'all. Take care. All right, I'm going to close the poll. Thanks all. Have a great day.